This is from an old friend. I haven't heard back from him, but I hope he's okay. As you know, I am, or was, in training to be a coroner. My education was almost complete, and I had been working a paid internship with a well known medical examiner in the Washington, D.C. area. All that changed a few hours ago when I was fired from the office for refusing to participate in what I believed to be a cover up. Even though they warned me about the consequences for leaking any information about this case, my conscience just wouldn't be clear if I kept quiet. This is something people need to know. A few days ago, we received a call from the Metro Police about a possible body discovered on the Red Line. Since working here, we've responded to a few calls from the subway. The first time, it was a woman who tripped over someone's rolling suitcase while trying to pass by on escalators. She ended up with a broken neck. Twice we went out there for a heart attack, once for a late night mugging that went bad. The poor guy was stabbed repeatedly in the stomach even though he handed his watch and wallet over to the mugger, like he requested. So far, I haven't seen anything especially gory, and it was a bit of a letdown when the dispatch officer said that there was a man just found sitting on the train. Is it wrong? I've been looking forward to a call about someone either jumping or being pushed in front of a train. The interesting thing is the wording of the dispatch request. Possible body. If the word possible is in front of body, maybe it's the paramedics that should be responding, not the coroner's office. When we arrived, the paramedics actually were on the scene, so we figured it was just a miscommunication and we were called out prematurely. The police tape blocked up the whole entire station platform. From our view at the top of the escalators, we could see something wasn't right. The paramedics stood outside the door of the train, and they weren't actually doing anything except arguing and pointing at a body slumped up against the window inside. We could have left, but since it was a slow evening, we decided to take a look anyway just to see what was going on. As we approached, I overheard some of the conversation between the two paramedics. "He's dead, right?" said the older of the two. "Dead people don't do that," I thought. Once they saw us, they quickly agreed that the man was dead and promptly left the scene to us. Clearly, this wasn't something that they wanted to handle, and I could understand that. The police weren't much help either. I chatted with the officers on the scene while the doc went in to take a look at the man on the train. One of the detectives commented that there weren't any signs of foul play. The witnesses all claimed the guy just sat down like everyone else and he just stopped breathing. Natural causes, I thought. Seemed like a pretty cut and dry case. When I looked over my shoulder at the doc, he seemed confused. "Look at this," he said, as I walked into the train. As I approached, it seemed like the man was just napping, like a lot of the train riders do when they know their stop won't be coming up for a while. "Look at what?" I asked. His eyes. The man's head was forward with his chin to his chest so that I had to kneel down to take a good look at his face. As I'm doing this, the doc talking out loud like he tends to do, just going over his mental checklist. Not breathing, no pulse, his skin is cold to the touch, approximate time of death, 6 to 8 hours ago. I'm in the aisle of the train trying to make do with a pen flashlight since the dim lighting on the train wasn't helping much. The man's eyes were open and they seemed to be staring at me. It's not uncommon, so I leaned in closer to figure out what the doc wanted me to see, so I didn't look like an idiot. And then he blinked. I jumped back as quick as a mongoose would jump away from a cobra. "What the fuck?" I said. "Exactly," said the doc. "Gotta be a muscle spasm, right?" "You would think," he says, "but watch this." He grabs the guy by the hair and pulls his head back. With his other hand, he waves a finger in front of the man's eyes, which then begins to follow along as the doctor moves his finger left and right. Then the man looked at me and blinked again. "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" I asked. "Nope." "And he's dead, right?" "As a doornail." We let the officer in charge know that we couldn't determine the cause of death on site. A full autopsy would need to be performed to make any kind of determination. She made a note in the report that his body had a tendency to follow you with his eyes and occasionally blink. Off the record, she told me, the whole case bothered her. The man, she said, didn't have any identification, credit cards, watch, jewelry, a phone, or even money. All they found on him was a train ticket and a napkin. Once we got him back to the office, we changed into our examination coveralls. I was asked to deal with his clothing. The man watched me the whole time as I stripped off his business suit. He even winked at me once. Also, a few odd things were noted about the clothing. First, he wasn't wearing any undergarments. Normally, people would wear a t-shirt, boxers, or briefs, and socks. This guy wore none of those. But for some reason, he had on two belts, one over the other. The doctor switched on the tape recorder and turned on the buzzsaw. I watched as he performed the Y incision, and I made a mental note of his perfect technique so I could try to do it better next time. I'm telling you, the doc is a real artist. Next came the enjoyable cracking sound of the rib cage as it was pried open. All this was happening while the guy's eyes watched us. I almost swear he was smiling too. Over the next hour, the doc made notes as he did the exam. He handed me each organ to be weighed and cataloged. There was nothing strange or out of the ordinary about any of the internal organs. Okay, the doctor said. Let's take a look inside his head. I want to see what's causing the eye movement. Listen, do you mind if we tape his eyes shut first? I'm trying to remain professional as I can, but the constant blinking is unnerving me. The doctor didn't mind, so I took some suture tape and worked up the courage and manually closed the guy's eyes. Immediately, they started moving fast. The whole face was conversing, contorting itself, trying to break free of the tape. I don't think he likes that, the doctor said, as he removed the tape from the man's eyes. The violent motion stopped right away, and he blinked at the doctor. This isn't natural, I said. There's a scientific reason for everything, and it's our job to find it, the doc replied. But he fought to get the tape off his eyes. I guess he wants to watch. Now, do you want me to remove the skull, or should I do it? I'm too shaken to handle the equipment. So I watched as the doctor worked the saw around the man's skull. The bastard is smiling. I am sure of it. He's staring at me and blinking with his left eye and then his right eye back and forth. I hear the familiar popping sound caused by the top of the skull being pulled off. Whoa. Oh, okay, the doctor says. What is it? As I ask, walking around to see what he's seeing. The man's eyes follow me, of course. I think I might have to call this one in. Dear God, the brain is missing. Doc, I asked. Not now. Pack up and go home. I'll finish cleaning this up. He's saying this as he's already dialing the number on the phone. But just go. I'll call you later. It isn't a request. I know when to shut up and listen. I make my way to the door knowing that the man is still staring at me. And I don't say anything to anybody. This morning I hear a knock at my door. It's a man who says he's with the medical examiner's office. But he looks as if he's with the CIA, the FBI, or the NSA, or some other three-letter agency. He asks if he could come in to talk. I open the door to let him in. As I do, I notice two similar dressed men sitting in the back of a sedan across the street. The folder he hands me is a case file for the John Doe that we found on the train. All the notes about the eye movement, the blinking, were all removed. There was no mention of anything out of the ordinary, let alone the missing brain. It's got the doc's signature on it, and this man is asking me to sign it as well. I tell him that the files are wrong. He holds up a hand to stop me from speaking. This is how it happened. Sign it, he said. I asked about the doc. I wanted to know why I haven't heard from him. He says that the doc has been let go. The way he said it makes me think the worst. I refused to sign it and asked to speak to the director of the medical examiner's office. The man informs me that that would be impossible and that I'm to be fired. But he didn't use the word fire. He used the word terminated. He leaves when I ask him to go, but he warns me that mentioning this to anyone would mean serious consequences. As soon as the door closed behind him, I packed the bag and took off. I saw that black Suburban was parked at the end of my street, and I just was paranoid, but I think it pulled out right after I did. Just in case I was being followed, I changed directions several times, and when I felt safe enough, I pulled into a nearby residential neighborhood, finding open Wi-Fi signal. I think something strange is going on in DC, maybe elsewhere as well. I don't know what it could be, but I feel like the doc and I stumbled upon something we weren't supposed to know about, and now we're in danger. I find the doc's home phone number. I called it and it went straight to voicemail. I tried to leave a message for him, but the line went dead once I began talking. If someone is monitoring my calls, it's possible my car is bugged too, and they already know exactly where I am. Again, maybe I'm just being paranoid or crazy. Maybe there's a complete logical explanation for the Scarecrow corpse that stares and blinks and winks and smiles. I can't imagine how anything like that could exist or why. I'm scared. Really, really scared. I decided the only thing to do would be to write this and email it out to everybody I know. Hopefully, this information will make it to someone. If you've received this and haven't heard back from me by tomorrow, then I'm probably dead, and you'll know what I've written is true. Thank you so much for listening to the reading of The Scarecrow Corpse by Kris Mallory. It is one of my favorite creepypastas, and I will also be reading more creepypastas in the future, as well as doing scary countdowns and photos. And also, don't forget to click and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.